This is episode 9, and we're talking about dealing.
You are listening to a Radiance Revival podcast where we rebirth and unearth your inner brilliance by focusing on love, energy, and freedom. I am your host, coach, and brilliance believer, Catherine Sogard. In this podcast, you will learn that you are your biggest advocate, fan, and creator of your own destiny by using the radiance you were born with. When you are empowered to use this inner brilliance, you can create your best life. So let's get this Radiance Revival started. Hey guys, it's been a while, and I'm excited to do this episode. I think a lot of times we so focus on the events that happen in our life, and we focus less on how we're feeling about those events as opposed to the event themselves. So when I say event, I mean there's a lot of things that happen in our life that we can choose to do, right? There's events that we can choose. We can choose to get married. We can choose to have kids sometimes. We can choose to leave our job. We can choose to buy a house. But there's a lot of events in our life that we have little to no control over. And some of the events that we choose may have some consequences that we didn't intend to happen. So in every situation, whether you choose the event to happen, you put things in motion that are going to make something happen, or you don't choose it, or you do choose it, like getting married, but then it has all these unintended consequences that you have little to no control over. And that's what I mean when I'm talking about we focus more on the event, like the getting married part, and less on how we feel about it. I believe that when we focus on those feelings and we can channel them into a way of coping, especially when we're talking about negative events that happen in our life, we are able to have more energy. We are able to obtain more love for ourselves and for those around us who we care about. And ultimately, we're able to achieve that freedom that we all so desire. So when I'm talking about these events happening and how we feel about them, I'm talking more so about how we deal with things that happen in our life, especially those things that happen that we can't control. So if you're anything like me, and a lot of my clients are, I mean, that's just kind of how it does, like attracts like. So my clients and I have been using this new technique that I have been working hard to develop, and I think it works. It's kind of a life coaching hack on how to deal with an issue that you're struggling with. So I'm going to share it on this podcast. As I always say, we're all different, and so this tip may work great for you, and it may not. So take it or leave it as you may, but at least try this tip when you are dealing with an issue that you're struggling with. So sometimes I feel really overwhelmed when I'm at work, and sometimes I feel like I'm struggling with family, or I'm fighting with my partner, or sometimes I just feel overwhelmed with the situation that I am in with my life. And I've gone through that my entire life. I've always had a time when I've just felt overwhelmed and I just can't deal. I feel I start to get that dread feeling in my stomach. And if I let it go long enough, I'll basically get to the point where I just kind of want to give up, and just not do anything. Just sit on the couch and Netflix and chill. Or sometimes it's so overwhelming that I feel like I need to cry in the closet. And I am not ashamed to say I have cried in the closet before. It's okay. Sometimes we just got to do what we got to do to cope. But before I get into that whirly, swirly cycle of overwhelmed and then dread and then just want to give up and then just want to cry in the closet, I have started to implement this technique into my life, and I've also introduced this to a couple of my clients, and they have loved it. It's kind of a quirky thing. It's kind of weird, but it's a hack that has helped me, and I hope that you might try it and let me know how it goes. So like I said, this is for situations where you feel overwhelmed, like at work, or you might be struggling with a family member, or you might be fighting with your partner. And that leads to you being unsure of what to do. You find yourself dwelling, even spiraling, or hiding in the closet crying, or you feel really angry. And then you start to feel hopeless about the situation. So this is the hack that helped me. I perform an interview. I know, it sounds weird, but it's like you're interviewing someone to be your replacement. So if you're overwhelmed at work, it's like an interview that you would do if someone was going to take your job. Or if you're struggling with your partner, maybe it's like you got a divorce from your partner or you're separated from your partner and you're interviewing like your replacement partner for your partner. I know, it sounds really weird. Or like maybe you're on your deathbed and you're trying to find someone to replace you so that your partner can be happy, because ultimately, deep down somewhere, you love your partner, right? And you're interviewing a replacement to someone that's going to be perfect for your partner. And really the way to find, in my honest opinion, and I've done lots of interviews. I've been a manager in retail. I have interviewed people for jobs, and I've been a part of a lot of interviews. And I've actually gone to several interviews, believe it or not. I've had quite a few jobs. So the best way to find a really great person for the job or someone to replace you is to ask questions that are of situations that are hard for you, i.e. the situation that's causing you overwhelm, or that's causing you to fight with your partner, or the situation that's causing you to struggle with your family member. I know, just stay with me. Stay with me. So if you're struggling at work and there's a situation at work, like they're expecting you to do a task that's going to take you a lot more time than you have time to do. And this is the thing that's making you spiral out of control, because it makes you feel like they don't understand the job that you're doing. They don't really value your time, and they're not involved in the day-to-day stuff that you're doing. So you want to do a good job for them, and you want to prove to them that you're doing a good job because it's important. But at the same time, you're like, wait a second, there's only so much time in a day, right? There is just an expectation that is a little unrealistic, and you aren't sure how to deal with it. This is the question that you ask to your interviewee. So, if someone asks you to do something and you only have this many hours in the day and you're already doing XYZ in tasks, how do you handle this situation? What do you say to the person that's asking you to do this task? How do you ensure that they understand that your plate is full, but also that you're doing a really great job with the things that you're currently doing? Another example is you're fighting with your partner about something that is really meaningful to you, but it doesn't really mean anything to them. And you want them to think that it's meaningful, and you want them to understand that it's meaningful to you. You ask the person that you're interviewing, how would you handle that situation? Naturally, when you ask a question, your brain automatically is going to start to do the work to find the answer. It's just how we're wired as humans. So automatically, when you ask that question to this invisible person who's replacing you in your job or your relationship or your family, your brain is going to automatically start to generate an answer. So get a pad of paper and write it down. The whole point of this practice is so you can step outside of the situation. You can look at it from the outside as opposed to the inside, where you have all these feelings, where you have all this dwelling, where you have all this anger, where you have all this hopelessness, where you're just like swirling out of control. And you can step out and think of what it may be that would help you to solve the problem. Now, the funny trick is, now that we've got out of all of that anxiety and anger and swirling feelings, we're able to really identify how we truly feel about the situation. And we also have a few ways by the answers that your brain has generated to those questions about what you're going to do about the situation, how you're going to deal with it. Dealing with a stressful, overwhelming situation is less about the situation itself and more about how you cope with it, how you're able to look at it, how you're able to move forward. And that's really how you're going to be successful. That's really how you're going to have more energy, because you're going to spend less time swirling and more time actually doing the things that you want to do. Because nobody wants to feel like they're overwhelmed or angry or hopeless. We want to have energy. We want to be able to go through life and just be free and loving and excited and live our lives, man. That's what we want to do. We want to have a good life. And we can't do that if we're thrown a curveball and feeling overwhelmed with it and struggling with it. So you're thinking, Catherine, in the beginning of this podcast, you were talking about we need to feel more about the event as opposed to just seeing the event for the event. And we need to be more in tune with how we feel about the event. That is true. But if you're spiraling and you're kind of stuck, you're in like a little worry loop that I like to call it, you're not going to be able to actually identify how you feel about the situation because you've worked yourself up into this worry loop that you can't get out of. So you got to first take a step back and look at it from the outside, do your interview questions, write down the answers, and then this is where the juicy part comes. You'll be able to give that person some advice on how they might be able to better handle that situation. Ultimately, secretly, that person is you. So as a recap, when you're feeling overwhelmed with a situation and you're starting to get into that worry loop, perform an interview by asking a person that is going to be your replacement how you would handle the situation that you're currently struggling with. When you ask that question, your brain is going to automatically start to generate some answers. Write down those answers. Then take a few minutes to evaluate how you feel about those answers. I always have an A, B, and a C way that this could be handled. From there, you can evaluate the 3 options of how to handle the situation and how you would feel if you took those ways to handle this particular situation. This technique allows you to step outside of the situation, identify some ways that you're able to handle the situation, and then also by using those ways, you can really figure out how you are feeling about the situation as opposed to being in that worry loop that is not going to allow you to make a good decision on how to handle the situation. Boy, I hope that is clear and that you will be able to try this little hack. If you have more questions on how to do a self-interview when you're struggling with a situation, please feel free to reach out to me at catherinesogard@gmail.com. And I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful week. All right, loves, thank you for listening to yet another brilliant, energy-packed episode of the show. If you haven't yet subscribed, what the heck are you waiting for? You know it's my mission to help women revive their inner radiance so they can live their best lives. So if you enjoyed this episode, leave a brilliant review so that more women can find us and join us, radiate our brilliance across the universe.